What messages did you receive about credit growing up? For me, I can remember my parents telling me to never open a credit card and to pay for everything in cash. On the surface, this sounds like pretty good financial advice until it's time to buy a house. It's not entirely your parents' fault that they don't understand credit. In fact, it was invented during their lifetimes. So I can forgive them for not knowing everything about credit, but now that we know, it's time to do better, because not having credit in some ways is worse than having bad credit. Some drawbacks of not having credit at all is to pay deposits for every single utility that you try to open. And that was a headache, especially when I first moved out on my own. I had to pay a deposit for pretty much 5 different bills. Of course, I got the money back later, but it was a big upfront cost just to get me into any kind of apartment. So I played the having no credit game for about 6 years until I finally broke down and determined, hey, this is stupid, let's get some credit. Because you're better off learning how to use credit the smart way than avoiding it altogether. When you have no credit, you're going to run into this.
We can't find your credit profile.
This means you and your credit don't exist, and you'll be treated as if you have poor credit because the banks don't know if they can trust you. I couldn't even take advantage of the company discount that I had on my cell phone plan because I didn't have any credit to move the cell phone plan from my mom's name to my name. If you're a young adult or teenager, the first thing I recommend for you to focus on is, before you leave your parents' house, is to just save enough money to pay those deposits, because it's probably what's going to happen anyway. In addition to the first and last month's rent, along with your security deposit that comes with renting an apartment, expect to pay an additional deposit somewhere between $75 to $200. I say $75 to $200, but I want you to save a lot more than that. So I'm gonna recommend that you save somewhere between $250 to $300. That's only because I'd rather you estimate high and be wrong, and you still have a little bit of money left over, than the other way around. Because if you don't have enough money, that can get you in some pretty bad financial situations. In most cases, you're gonna get your deposit back, but it's gonna take a year or more of on-time payment, depending on who the utility provider is. So let's make a plan to save some money. I already said that I recommend saving somewhere between $250 to $300 per bill. You're going to expect to pay electricity, internet, cell phone, and water. Some of those bills may come included in your apartment rent, but for the most part, most apartments will expect you to pay at least 3 of those 4. Next, we're gonna be talking about building credit in the easiest way. We're gonna open up our first credit card. If you don't have any credit history, you're not even gonna be eligible for most credit cards. That means, like I did, you're going to have to sign up for a secured credit card. Because I didn't have a credit score, the bank has no idea how trustworthy I am with money. It's a risk just to lend me money. What a secured credit card does is to reduce the risk of the bank to lend money to me by making me pay a deposit up front to open the account. Here's how this works. I give the bank $200 to get access to a credit card with a $200 monthly spending limit. I can use that credit card like anybody else with a card. However, if I don't pay my bill at any time, the credit card company will use that $200 deposit to pay off whatever bill that I had. They'll slap me with a whole bunch of fees, and then eventually close my account. But none of that happened to me, and it won't have to happen to you, because we are financially responsible. The easiest way to use a secured credit card is to find one bill that's 20% of the initial deposit that you put up front, and just put on auto pay on the card. For example, my internet bill was around $40 at the time, so it was a perfect bill to put on my secured credit card. The reason why you only want to use 20% of the amount that you have to spend is something called utilization rate. I'll cover it in a future video, but it basically helps your score if you keep your utilization rate at 20% or below. By saving money for deposits and applying for a secure credit card, you've done 80% of the work that it takes to positively increase your credit score. Here's the thing that you need to avoid. Do not buy a car from the dealership. One of the worst things you can do when you don't have any credit is to get an auto loan. Remember, having no credit will be treated like having bad credit, especially when you're car shopping. You can be charged abnormally high interest rates that can hold you back financially for years. These types of auto loans are called subprime loans, and they're extremely easy to get into and very hard to get out of. If you don't have the money to afford a car in full, a subprime loan can set you back financially for years. What I'm about to say is probably gonna sound like some advice that your parents would be likely to tell you, but honestly, it's not that bad. you're gonna have to go on OfferUp, Craigslist, or Car Gurus to look for a cheap but reliable car. Look for a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. That means no Supras, no GR86s, no Tundras, no Tacomas, not even a RAV4. I hear a lot of people in personal finance try to sneak Ford into that list, but when I was a kid, Ford stood for fix or repair daily or found on road dead. I don't trust them. I hadn't had any experience with Ford to be able to tell you firsthand that, hey, this is a good and reliable car. But what I do know is that Honda and Toyota make really good cars that are cheap and that are low cost to repair. They may not be the best looking cars. Toyota in particular, I feel like is 5 years behind when it comes to the design of the interior compared to other cars, but it will get you from home to work. That way we can buy our next car when we have more money saved and we have a higher credit score. Over time, using a credit card responsibly can get your credit score to increase. I hope you can use what you learned today to be one step closer to using money to live the life that you want to live.